January 22, 1944. The Italian countryside lies frozen under a pale winter sun. Thin mist drifts between shattered olive trees, wrapping the fields in a dull gray hush. Beyond a ridge, the low growl of engines breaks the stillness. Dozens of Panzer IVs moving in formation, their silhouettes crawling like metal beasts through the fog. Inside a concealed gun pit, a lone British anti-tank gunner, Sergeant Alan Royce, studies the shifting shadows across the snow. His crew waits for his signal. The artillery sight rests steady, its barrel aimed toward a narrow valley road, the only passage between the ridgeline and a ruined farmhouse. Royce doesn't fire when he sees the tanks. He waits, watches, counts the seconds by the length of their shadows creeping closer. Timing becomes his weapon, each beam of sunlight a silent metronome. The moment approaches when patience turns into precision. By early 1944, the Italian campaign had ground into a brutal contest of attrition. The Allies had landed at Salerno the previous autumn, forcing the Germans to retreat northward. But each step came at a terrible cost. The mountainous terrain favored defense. Every ridge became a fortress, every valley a killing ground. The Germans, under Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, had perfected a layered system of defense known as the Gustav Line, an interlocking web of bunkers, artillery nests, and tank traps stretching from sea to sea across central Italy. To break through, Allied commanders launched Operation Shingle, a bold amphibious landing at Anzio designed to outflank the German lines and force a retreat toward Rome. But the landing did not go as planned. Instead of racing inland, the Allied beachhead became a pocket, surrounded on three sides by rapidly reinforced German units. Among these were the 26th Panzer Division, seasoned veterans of North Africa and the Eastern Front. They knew how to counterattack fast and hard. Anti-tank crews like Sergeant Alan Royce's unit, part of the 2nd Battalion, London Irish Rifles, were tasked with holding fragile defensive positions along the approaches leading inland from Anzio. Their weapon? The British 6-pounder anti-tank gun, small, underpowered by late war standards, but deadly when used with cunning. Royce's section occupied a hidden position overlooking a crossroads that German armored columns were expected to use during their push toward the coast. The morning mist, the uneven ground, and the low winter sun created an unusual problem and opportunity. Shadows moved faster than the tanks themselves. In the uneven light, Royce realized he could anticipate movement before visual contact, using the length and rhythm of the Panzer's shadows to time his first shot. That observation would soon transform a vulnerable position into a deadly ambush. The Panzer columns approaching Anzio were part of a desperate German counteroffensive. Hitler had ordered Kesselring to throw the Allies into the sea, and armored brigades were pulled from across central Italy to crush the beachhead before it could expand. Between January 20th and 24th, waves of German armor, Panzer IVs, SDUG-3 assault guns, and mobile infantry moved south through the Alban Hills, converging toward the coastal plain. The British and American troops dug in hastily. Mud, flooded fields, and broken terrain made it nearly impossible to reposition heavy guns. Most defensive lines consisted of scattered infantry supported by a handful of anti-tank weapons. Every gun mattered. Every round counted. Sergeant Royce's gun team had been positioned 2 days earlier. Their camouflage netting was patched with branches and burlap. From the air, it looked like part of the frozen hillside. The crew's orders were simple: delay, disrupt, survive. But in reality, they were the thin line between the German armor and the soft underbelly of the beachhead. As dawn broke on January 22nd, reconnaissance reports confirmed enemy armor movement through the southern valley. The Panzers were using the same supply roads that German engineers had cleared overnight, narrow, confined routes with little room to maneuver. The 6-pounder's low silhouette gave Royce one advantage: concealment. But against the frontal armor of a Panzer IV, the gun's penetration limit was razor-thin. Timing, therefore, became everything. The first shot had to be perfect, angled through the thinner side plate or the exposed drive wheel. Firing too soon would expose their position. Firing too late would mean annihilation. The fog lifted slowly, the sunlight breaking in fractured beams. Royce studied the shadows, realizing that when a tank's outline darkened the nearest ridge, he could predict its precise moment of emergence, seconds before visual contact. He called it shadow timing, and that morning it would decide who lived and who didn't. From a human perspective, Sergeant Alan Royce was not a hero in search of glory. He was a survivor, Months of mud, sleepless nights, and shell fire. He had taught him one thing: battles were won not by strength but by timing. His small team, Corporal Jenkins, Gunner Mills, and Loader Hart, shared that understanding. They knew the fragility of their position, their vulnerability to even a single direct hit. Yet they stayed silent and focused, knowing their gun's presence could hold an entire flank. Royce's technique emerged not from textbooks but from instinct. He had noticed during earlier engagements that the sun, hanging low in winter, cast elongated shadows before the tanks themselves appeared. In a terrain where line of sight was broken by ridges and smoke, those shifting silhouettes became his advance warning. He began counting the rhythm, the seconds between shadow and sound, and used that as his invisible rangefinder. On that cold January morning, his men trusted him completely. "We wait for the light," Royce had said quietly. And so they did. The crew crouched low, breathing through scarves to mask steam, waiting for the length of a tank's shadow to hit a marked rock near the gun pit. That would be their signal. Tactically, the approach was pure discipline. Instead of reacting to sight or sound, they anticipated movement based on an environmental cue invisible to the enemy. It turned the weakness of low sun into an advantage, a primitive but precise synchronization with the battlefield's natural rhythm. When the first Panzer's shadow stretched long across the ridge, Royce didn't shout. He only tapped the barrel twice, their prearranged signal. Mills steadied his sight. Hart lifted a shell. Jenkins held his breath. The gun waited, still as stone, locked in the calm before violence. From a technological standpoint, the 6-pounder anti-tank gun was modest but reliable. Its 57mm round could penetrate the side armor of a Panzer IV at close range, though frontal shots were often ineffective. Unlike larger artillery, it was light enough to be repositioned quickly and concealed in narrow pits. Royce exploited these limits, understanding that the gun's precision mattered more than brute force. Shadow timing transformed a small-caliber weapon into a lethal tool against seemingly superior armor. Leadership and decision-making also played a pivotal role. Royce's calm, calculated authority kept his team from panicking under tension. Unlike higher-ranking officers who coordinated entire battalions, his influence was immediate and intimate. A glance, a tap, a gesture, and the team moved in perfect synchrony. The psychological weight of commanding a weapon whose margin for error was measured in seconds shaped Royce's every action. The enemy perspective reveals just how vulnerable German tactics could be. The 26th Panzer Division had trained for frontal engagements, mechanized charges, and rapid breakthroughs. But winter light, narrow roads, and hidden anti-tank positions created blind spots in even the most disciplined formations. The Germans did not expect small teams to manipulate environmental cues like shadows, and they advanced confidently into a trap they could not see. Morally, the scene reflects the ethical tightrope of warfare. One small gun could destroy dozens of armored vehicles, but it was also a human decision. Count the shadows, fire at the precise moment, and decide who lived and who died. Royce's shadow timing was an ingenious fusion of instinct, training, and observation. It was science applied to survival, humanity applied to destruction. As the first tanks edged into range, the air grew taut with anticipation. Seconds stretched, shadows elongated, and the gun waited. Every angle, the human, the tactical, the technological, the enemy, converged toward a single, decisive moment. The first Panzer IV emerged from the ridge at 0817. Its shadow, long and distorted by the uneven terrain, stretched across the frozen ground. Sergeant Royce's eyes tracked the dark line, counting heartbeats in seconds, feeling the rhythm of machine and light as if it were part of his own body. A single tap of the barrel signaled the loader. Hart placed the shell, Mills adjusted the sight to match the predicted armor gap, and Jenkins checked the recoil springs one last time. The team moved as one, 0818. Royce squeezed the trigger. The 6-pounder fired. The shell struck the tank's side plate, penetrating near the drive wheel. The Panzer shuddered violently, metal groaning under the impact. Its crew scrambled in panic, abandoning the vehicle as flames began to lick the engine compartment. The German column, only meters behind, had no idea what hit them. Shadows moved across the ridges in perfect sequence, and Royce exploited each one. Every shot was preemptive, timed, and fatal. One tank disabled, the next side plate exposed, and the anti-tank pit became a silent executioner. By 0822, 3 Panzer IVs and a Stu G3 were destroyed or immobilized. Smoke curled into the cold morning sky. The valley became a maze of overturned tracks and burning metal. Royce's team barely flinched, maintaining discipline under the sensory assault of fire, smoke, and the distant echo of engines. Nearby infantry took advantage of the confusion, advancing while German units attempted to regroup. Royce's shadow timing had not just destroyed armor, it had created space, delayed the enemy's advance, and shifted the balance along the ridge. For the first time that morning, a moment of absolute clarity prevailed on the battlefield. Every calculation, every observation, every heartbeat had converged. The valley, once a route for German dominance, had become a crucible where timing, instinct, and technology intersected with lethal precision. 8:25. The German commander, Oberleutnant Weber, realized the danger too late. His vehicles were scattered, engines smoking, and infantry pinned along the flanks. Orders to halt and regroup only added confusion. Royce, hidden behind the ridge, calculated the shadows of each remaining tank, firing with near-mechanical rhythm. By 0828, 2 more Panzer IVs rolled onto the ridge, unaware of the precise timing that awaited them. The first shell struck the lead vehicle in the side, immobilizing it instantly. The second shell, following the shadow's cadence, penetrated the next tank's armor, igniting its fuel lines. Explosions erupted in sequence, a chorus of fire and steel that echoed through the valley. The ambush lasted less than 15 minutes, yet it decimated nearly half of the attacking Panzer Brigade in this sector. The German column, once confident and advancing in formation, dissolved into chaos. Smoke, noise, and fire obscured vision. Armored vehicles collided, tracks tore through frozen earth, and soldiers fled under concentrated small arms and artillery fire. Amid the devastation, Royce remained calm. His team reloaded, observed, and adjusted, using the shadows to anticipate every move. The effectiveness of his technique had been proven. A single concealed gun, operated with discipline and intuition, could disrupt an entire mechanized advance. At 0832, Weber ordered a retreat. The surviving panzers withdrew toward higher ground, leaving behind burning hulks and scattered infantry. Royce's shadow timing had turned the tide of the skirmish, proving that skill and timing could overcome superior numbers and firepower. In the aftermath of the engagement, the valley's frozen ground was littered with wreckage, burning tanks, shattered bridges, and the silence of German retreat. The human cost was high, yet the tactical lesson was clear. Warfare was as much about patience, observation, and anticipation as it was about raw strength. That morning, a small team of determined soldiers had reshaped a battlefield through precision and ingenuity, setting the stage for the broader struggle that would continue across the Italian front. The immediate consequences of Sergeant Royce's ambush were stark. Reports from British command confirmed that a significant portion of the 26th Panzer Division's assault force had been neutralized. Out of the 15 armored vehicles that advanced through the valley, 6 were destroyed, 3 severely damaged, and several others immobilized by the wreckage. Infantry units accompanying the panzers had suffered substantial casualties, with survivors forced to withdraw under the threat of encroaching Allied positions. The psychological impact was equally significant. German troops, accustomed to rapid armored breakthroughs, were unprepared for such a precise and lethal method of ambush. Accounts from captured soldiers describe confusion and disbelief at the sudden destruction, with many commenting on the uncanny timing of the British fire. Royce's technique, so simple in concept yet devastating in execution, instilled caution and hesitation in subsequent German advances along similar routes. British command quickly recognized the tactical importance of the action. Dispatches highlighted how a single well-placed anti-tank gun, when combined with ingenuity and observation, could stall an entire armored column. This lesson influenced positioning strategies for remaining anti-tank units, emphasizing concealed placement, utilization of natural light, and the exploitation of terrain shadows. Casualty reports also painted a grim picture. While Royce's team emerged unscathed, the valley below bore the marks of intense combat: burning tanks, twisted metal, and scorched earth. Engineers and recovery units later documented the scene, noting the tactical precision required to destroy vehicles without exposing the gun pit itself. Photographs taken after the engagement show the destroyed panzers' side profiles, directly validating Royce's shadow timing methodology. The ambush became a case study for small unit effectiveness, demonstrating that armored superiority could be countered through timing, discipline, and environmental awareness. For Royce and his crew, the moment was quiet but profound. A precise alignment of human instinct and battlefield science had shifted the balance, if only temporarily, along the Anzio front. The longer-term effects of Royce's ambush reverberated across the Anzio front. German commanders, now wary of concealed positions along narrow valleys and ridgelines, adjusted their approach. Reconnaissance patrols increased, and armored columns moved more cautiously, often slowing advances to avoid similar destruction. This hesitation allowed Allied forces to consolidate positions, reinforcing beachhead defenses and improving supply lines. From a leadership perspective, Royce's success highlighted the value of initiative at the small unit level. Higher command took note. In modern warfare, ingenuity and timing could outweigh sheer numbers. Reports sent to divisional headquarters praised not only the tactical outcome but the method itself, describing how the shadow timing technique maximized efficiency while minimizing exposure. It became an example taught to other anti-tank teams, illustrating how precise observation could turn a minor asset into a decisive force multiplier. Technologically, the engagement underscored the limitations of Panzer IV armor against disciplined, well-aimed fire. While tanks had dominated open fields in earlier campaigns, restrictive terrain and environmental variables like sunlight and shadows exposed vulnerabilities that sophisticated armor could not fully mitigate. Engineers and tactical analysts later referenced the ambush when planning future engagements, noting that even small-caliber weapons, when combined with timing and terrain exploitation, could produce disproportionately large effects. The human cost, however, remained real. German losses included not only the destroyed tanks but soldiers captured or killed in the chaos. Allied observers estimated dozens of casualties, a stark reminder of the stakes involved in even brief skirmishes. Royce's crew, though unharmed, witnessed the immediate consequences of their precision: men, machines, and lives extinguished in a matter of minutes. By the end of the day, the valley remained scarred, a testament to how strategy, observation, and timing could tip the scales. The ambush was not just a moment of battlefield ingenuity, it was a lesson in the interplay between environment, technology, and human decision-making. A reminder that even in the chaos of war, order, patience, and perception could determine survival. The ambush in the Anzio Valley stands as a quiet testament to the subtle power of observation and timing in warfare. Sergeant Royce's shadow timing technique transformed an ordinary anti-tank gun into a force capable of halting a Panzer Brigade. It was not heroics born of recklessness, but precision born of patience, study, and acute awareness of the environment. In that frozen winter morning, human instinct intertwined with mechanical technology and natural phenomena, shadows, sun angles, and terrain became instruments in a lethal symphony orchestrated by a single gunner and his small team. This episode reminds us that warfare is not always determined by sheer numbers or firepower. Sometimes, it is the smallest details, seen only by the attentive eye, that decide survival and victory. The engagement also underscores a deeper truth about humanity and conflict. The same mind that calculates destruction can also innovate to preserve life for allies and achieve strategic outcomes without needless exposure. Royce's method did not rely on luck. It relied on anticipation, discipline, and the courage to wait for the precise moment. Historically, the ambush influenced how small units approached anti-tank warfare, teaching lessons about terrain, timing, and the psychological edge in battle. It demonstrated that even in the vast machinery of World War II, individual skill and perception could shape outcomes on a human scale. In the quiet that followed the smoke and fire, the valley held both loss and learning. Shadows once again stretched across the ridges, but the lesson remained. In war, awareness and timing can become as lethal and as decisive as any weapon.